What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Proteus Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Head of Human Performance and Sports Science at Proteus Motion, Will Waterman. And this is the podcast where we feature our customers, who they train, and how they train them. And we have a real treat for you today. We have Dr. Andrea Davis, who we have known at Proteus for a long time. Really, she had one of our early prototype machines, has been involved ever since then. Really smart clinician who utilizes technology with her patients and with her athletes. And she's got a lot of really cool things to share with businesses, particularly like hers, that are working with both athletes, but also a multitude, of different patient populations. She's not just treating athletes, although she does that really well. She's also treating middle-aged folks, just trying to stay healthy, stay in shape. And she uses Proteus with all these different populations. So, and she describes that. She goes into the billing, how she's using it in billing. So it's a really good, informative episode for those that want to understand, I think, the business side of it, particularly on the PT side. So you're going to really enjoy that. But a little bit more about Andrea. She is a PT with over 20 years of orthopedic and sports experience. Her background was in softball. In college, she was a 2-year captain of her softball team. And then she turned that into being a Division I women's softball coach. And then she started her own practice. She started Davis Physical Therapy and Sports Rehab. And she, like I mentioned, uses cutting edge technology. She goes into all the technologies in the episode, how she pairs them with Proteus, what she's looking at with them. And also she's owner of Analytics for Athletes, which secured the first injury prevention program to be funded by a public school district. She's worked and consulted with Olympic and professional athletes, and she's really made a name for herself for working with ACL and return to play. So if you have interest in that, particularly you work with baseball and softball athletes, but also work with a lot of patients that are returning to play after ACL injury, this is the episode for you. If you want to understand how Proteus is being used with all those different patient populations, how you can use it with not only insurance reimbursement, but also cash base, and some other ways that you can utilize Proteus technology across a business to really diversify revenue. This is the episode for you. So hopefully you guys get a lot out of it. Hope you enjoy the episode. Okay, Andrea Davis, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for your time and for hopping on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Well, happy to be here.
Man, so you have been involved with Proteus for a long time. I think I can't even remember the first time I had a conversation with you. It must have been at least 4 years ago. I mean, maybe longer. I know that you've had been working with Sam for a long time. Sam, by the way, for all our listeners, is our founder and CEO. So I definitely want to get into that story, kind of like how you heard about us and everything. But before we do that, I always like to get the background of kind of how you became got into your profession. So what led you down the road of being a physical therapist?
Oh, that's an easy one. It's not an unfamiliar one. 3-sport athlete in high school. So field hockey, basketball, and softball was my jam. And banged up my ankle pretty badly in a softball tournament, slid into third, rolled that guy big and bad. And we were old school then, right? So I'm not young. So we were old school. So it was drop your ankle in an ice bucket in between innings, take it out, tape it up, go back out. And we were in Albany, I guess, at the time. So when I got home, I had to go to physical therapy. I had torn some ligaments in my ankle and whatnot. So that was the first. I didn't even know what PT was. I really only cared about probably boys in sports at the time in high school. So my future was not exactly on my mind at all times. But I remember thinking, looking around, I was like, wow, okay, this is pretty cool. Maybe that's something I'd like to get into, sports medicine and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So flash forward when we went through recruiting and whatnot. Again, I only really cared so much about boys in sports going into college. But to think about having a career extended past, my 4 years in college sports myself, how could I stay involved and be around sports? So PT, a credit to my mom. She steered me a little bit away from athletic training because of the flexibility with physical
Mm-hmm.
therapy and the different subsets. So here we are, 23 odd years later. Still going.
That's awesome. And you're right. That is a super familiar story.
Yeah.
That's basically my story, except replace where you said you're playing softball when you injured your ankle.
Correct.
So replace that for football for me, ACL for me. And then you basically have the same story. Went to PT, was like, oh, this is pretty cool. And actually my mom was the one that was kind of encouraging me. She was like, I think you'd be really interested in this and, all this. And I'm like, nah, it took me all the way until middle of college before I listened to my mom and was like, that would actually be a pretty cool job.
Yeah, no, I would say same. It was totally sport. I want sports medicine. No, you don't. Yeah, no, I do. No, sports medicine is not it's a direction, but it's not a career specifically. It's the beginning to a career. So end to end, she thought PT would be a better fit. And
nice.
I credit her all the time because I wouldn't be here today doing what I do without that. So
moms know best.
Yeah.
This is how it is.
Apparently. So yeah.
Well, so now let's get into when we first got connected with you. So tell us, how did you get connected with Proteus? What was that origin story? I don't quite remember that.
Yeah, interesting story. I think it was either 2018, 2019, if I'm somewhere in between.
Sure.
We had been renting space out of a turf facility. I was looking to expand my practice, so treated a ton of athletes. Rented space from a turf facility, and the gentleman who was running the turf facility had been interacting with Sam Miller.
That's right.
Yeah. And so I I'm a little nosy at times. So when the gentleman that was he was doing sports training or whatever, he shared with me the video for Proteus, and I kind of lost my mind in the sense that I have tunnel vision. When I see something that I want, I just kind of go after it. So
Same.
I politely inquired when Sam comes to do the demo, can I please be present and can I see?
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, and the majority of my career I've been around softball, been around sports, been around softball, but very proactive in women's sports and trying to assist as best I can in bringing them more to the forefront, because most of my experience in high school and college has been the boys have the better facilities, better equipment, et cetera, et cetera. So seeing Proteus in its infancy, just in that early stages, the only thing I wanted to do on that demo day was to take myself through a full windmill pitch for women's softball, because for the 5 to 7 years prior, I had my Shark Tank hat on, and I was like, how am I going to make pitchers stronger? We have to figure out a way how to get this revolution of this arm, et cetera, et cetera. So saw that, light bulb went off, and I was like all in deep, came with questions, hit Sam harder than he was like, who is this woman here?
That's right.
So that's
nice.
That's how we started.
Okay. So then I know you end up getting a Proteus, and we've heard, we've been working together for a long time at this point, but tell us a little bit about how you use it on a daily basis. So, I know that you have a combination of using it for both physical therapy, doing it to, assess and test things, but there's also some performance side things or training aspects that you're doing. So give us a little bit of background on how you're using it in those different scenarios, and, what kind of, patients that you're working with primarily with it.
Sure. So, I don't really see lanes as far as performance and PT. My hat, so to speak, I feel that we go back and forth through performance and PT. And I do feel very strongly that there's no age really restriction on performance as opposed to PT. So we have patients as young as 8 years old and patients as old as 75 years old that utilize the Proteus. And really, like anything else, this well too. It's like anything else. It's really about what you're trying to get out of it. It's like the end game of what you're trying to get out of it, and what are your goals for the use. So we use it from everything from power testing for and stat tracking over time for power production. power throughout range of motion. We utilize it for ACL population. I have a very big ACL following. It's one of my specialties, in addition to just straight return to play after injury. So the Proteus has become a key component throughout all of those populations, really specifically for its ability to cause core activation and facilitate grounding through the legs without really doing anything on my part, to be honest.
Right.
Like just going through the programming that's present.
Right.
Not even any, I mean, we can get as far into the nitty-gritty of customizing programs, but really the things that you guys have laid out for it is pretty easy to just apply like that.
Real quick. So you got all these different, groups of people that you work with. So what is actually, tell us a little bit more about your business actually first. And then I think that might give a little, perhaps we should start there actually, is give it an idea of like what population you're treating for the most part. And then I think maybe we can go into each layer a little bit, like how you're using it for each one, but let's start with that.
Sure. So we're a small private practice. I'm the sole owner. We've been in business for 6 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We have the original office space is 900 square feet, and that's where the Proteus is located. So not a large location.
Hear that, everybody? Not in a large space. It fits. It looks big, but it does a lot of work in a small space.
It does a ton of work in a small space, and if that's a drawback, not a chance. There was no way I was going to miss an opportunity to get that thing in my office. So.
Okay, sorry, keep going.
Yeah, no. So we're considered to be, business model as a hybrid practice, meaning we're cash-based as well as insurance-based. Painful at times, of course, but most people in this area are still traditional insurance-based, so it just makes sense for us. Our population, fairly diverse. Morning time is older population, Medicare, post-op surgicals, when kids go to school, young moms and stay-at-home moms, that type of the obvious ones for during the day. We close for about an hour, and then 2:30 we hit it, and we hit it pretty hard. So 2:30 on, our school gets out at 2:00, high school, and we're about 3 miles down the road from the high school in our town. So from 2:30 until 9:00 at night, we are rocking and rolling. We have 5 PTs, so little tiny space, but we roll hard.
So tell us a little bit about that relationship with that high school, because if I'm not mistaken, that is kind of a unique thing that you guys have going on, right?
So I volunteered for this high school since I was 23 years old. So when I graduated PT school, I'm a South Jersey native. Fairly ambitious. And when I graduated PT school, still my interest in sports, my first year working in physical therapy was actually in this town in Medford. And I was seeing a lot of athletes. So just the next logical step for me was to reach out to the local high school and contact the athletic trainer, introduce myself. And really what ended up happening is I got an invitation to then come spend time at the high school. Then I was a volunteer physical therapist at the high school. And I ended up completing all but 100 hours of my athletic training certification requirements because I had to make a choice between coaching Division I softball or being able to complete my hours. So the softball job won out, but I continued on in a volunteer component for the last 20 some odd years. So yeah, it's pretty cool, actually.
And a lot of your patients come from that high school?
A fair amount, yes, fair amount. So we have a very large school district. So there's 5 large high schools, and we sit kind of in the middle of that. So we interestingly enough, we don't just pull from the local high school as much as you would think that we do. We pull from high schools out of state. And mostly because of the work that we're doing with this technology, and more specifically with your technology. So
see, that's awesome to hear.
It's pretty cool. We've had people drive from we're in New Jersey, so Maryland, New York, come down from Rhode Island. Just
Wow.
bizarre type stuff for it's amazing, really.
Well, hey,
But
and give credit to you too, because I know I mean, I see the work you do. You're really good at what you do. So what
Thanks.
now are most of those people that are traveling, are they coming more for like softball? Are they softball players, or is there a particular group that's being attracted there?
The particular group really is return to play. So most of it has been ACL dominant or significant second shoulder surgery. So young people that have rehabbed once and then have circled back around and unfortunately need to have a second surgery. So it's usually the ones that are doing the research to see who is doing, more advanced work as opposed to just I don't know, not that there's anything wrong with regular physical therapy. It's very beneficial and helpful, but the new, what I keep referring to is the new brand of physical therapy, which is utilization of technology that's available, like Proteus. So for us to be able to provide concentric, it cuts down on work time, but it also gives us the data that if you understand the data, you can progress people in a much more efficient manner. So that's my
awesome.
opinion.
So tell me a little bit more about that data. Like, what are you, I think people like to hear some of these, nitty gritty specifics when they can, what are you measuring for, let's say, someone with a shoulder injury, recovering from a shoulder injury? What specific stuff are you looking at? And then, maybe then what kind of stuff are you doing from like an therapeutic exercise type of, intervention are you doing with Proteus as well?
Yeah, so we try to, the way my brain and my team, the way our brains work really has more to do with phases of recovery. So, different dealing with post-op as opposed to non-op, as opposed to instabilities, the nuances with that. But essentially, once you've achieved safe, full range of motion, then that's considered, in our world anyway, phase one. So like full range of motion type things. So we keep things relatively boxed, so to speak. So 3 feet wide, 3 feet tall, the non-impinged range of increasing strengthening. And then we utilize it just like you would anything else, just the strength progressions, tracking the range of motion that they're able to provide, and then the resistance that they're able to manage within that range. So it's really not, in my brain, it's not much different than what we're doing. The big difference is the information that is then kept in the profile, right? So then you can see what their tolerance out. Yep, exactly, and tracking over time.
How it's changing. Okay, cool. And then you mentioned using it, in shoulder. What's the difference there with ACL, since you work with a lot of ACL clients? What are the types of things that you're doing with Proteus there? Because I think that's something that a lot of people are like, how do you even use it for the lower extremity? And there's obviously anything you do with a barbell you can do with Proteus if you want, but there's also some unique applications on like using the resistance for decreasing body weight when you do something like a step down or a squat or something like that. But how are you using it? What are you testing, and what kind of exercise are you doing with it?
Yeah. So again, just going back to the core activation is huge. So, and our approach to ACL rehab is not just tunnel vision at the knee, full body approach. So upper extremity, lower extremity, hip, core, load, unload, and power production. So if you talk more towards maybe middle stage, end stage, return to sport type things, the acceleration, deceleration capabilities of left side versus right side kind of pair up with power production at the same time. So how much power can they produce? Lateral bounding is a big one. So how much can they produce right side versus left side? In the ACL community, the research is a lot about the limb symmetry index and left versus right. And, just going back, like when I was prepping for this interview, just going back, thinking about the things that I used to do prior to using Proteus when it comes to ACL and what I'm doing now, it's not necessarily the activities are particularly different. It's the application and tracking of the data for me and the smoothness and safety of what we can execute, especially in those post-op ACLs. So
and a lot of it's about the efficiency then, right, of measurement, right? You can just measure so quickly. You don't have to, bust out the tape.
Stare at the
there.
stopwatch and the
stopwatch.
You're
just able to, right. You're just able to go over there, bust out a test. It tracks it. Then you're able to adjust things on the fly.
Correct. Yeah. So it really is awesome. And it's, for me, honestly, Will, I've been around 23 years, and most of us, I think, around that maybe 15-year mark, maybe earlier, especially these days with declining reimbursement and the pressure to see more patients. This technology has really just re-sparked my love of what I do, and really kind of digging into things, whereas it's not a grind, it's more of an obsession now. And how can we refine it, and how can we take the data that your system is mining for us, and how can we really do things better? So that competitive nature from all these years, now it's in the PT world. So
I love that. Yeah, I mean, as definitely someone that's seen that burnout happen before too. You have someone go get reinvigorated. That's always great.
No. So thank you.
Yeah. Hey. No. Well. Hey. Thank you for being involved in so long. And so wait, a couple other questions here I have.
Sure.
With this population, I want to maybe lean in a little bit towards, because you mentioned a couple of times now, you do have to do billing. Unfortunately, you're not 100% cash based. So I'd love to talk a little bit about how you bill for use on Proteus. Because that's a topic that I get asked as a physical therapist often when I talk to other physical therapists. They want to understand the ROI on it and see how it fits into their practice. So can you talk a little bit about that?
I can. The ROI, and this is always the question, right? So ROI with any kind of new piece of technology, or asking people to invest in something, that's always the question up front, right? So I'm going to spend this. What am I going to get out of it? So I think about things a little bit differently than most people, which is good and bad depending on how you look at it. I like to think it's on the good side, because really what you're going to get out of it is what you put into it. Number one, sure. Proteus creates efficiencies that you just can't have with a standard cable column. We still have the the cable column weight system for various reasons and whatnot, but for me, data tracking, data mining, efficiency in care, being able to execute both bicep and tricep activities in one set is beyond meaningful. It allows me to, in the hybrid practice world, we're capped a lot of times on what we can bill or what we get paid. You see somebody for 30 minutes, you see somebody for an hour and a half. There's really not a ton difference in between, as you know. Yeah. Right. So the more time I can spend with them, manual therapy or education pieces or whatnot, the more beneficial and more valuable that visit becomes. So ways that I can increase my efficiencies within the office, if I'm only being reimbursed the same amount of money for the same amount of time, that's where Proteus fits in very nice. And it's why we use it for anybody and everybody, because it does create this extra window of time that we can spend with people. So the grind is much less of a grind, because we're actually treating the way that we want to be treated.
Right. So it's a little bit on being able to kind of maybe do more interventions in a shorter amount of time. So that's one way, right?
Correct.
And then I know that we've talked before on other conversations about using it to justify and extend care. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So because of the data tracking and the biggest thing when I started the practice, 2016, one of the biggest hurdles I knew I was going to have to, if I was going to go hybrid and still maintain a network status with insurance companies, reimbursement declining no matter when, which continues to happen, was going to be one of the biggest hurdles that we would have to conquer in order to be successful, or for me to be successful, and then be able to get people to join me in a small private practice. Like, I had to have a plan in place. So one of those things was data and analytics, and being able to justify the care that we're giving. You ask for authorization still with some. You request 12, they give you 3. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
And then it's embarrassing, really, post-op. But I could talk all day about ACL and what the research says and what insurance pays for, and it's awful. It's so backwards. But the goal really was to be able to justify in scientific terms, this is where they're at, this is what my clinical opinion is, this is what we think we need, and then be able to extend care or have higher conversions, I guess, on authorization requests.
Got it.
And consistently, it's something that I feel very good about. And it's not great still by any means, but it's significantly better than just sending in a standard outcome measure with the only things they ask for, range of motion and manual muscle testing. I mean, what do you do after you hit like four out of 5 on your MMTs? Like, how do you say that they're not quite back to where they need to be to execute their functional stuff and not get hurt again?
Right. And that's where the, power measurements and acceleration, like these are all things they're going to experience in their sport. They're going to experience in their day to day. If you can, send that in to the insurance company, show, look at this deficit compared to the uninjured side. It's a pretty powerful statement, right? I mean, it tells you they're not there yet. Maybe these other numbers are there, but clearly they're not there. They're not ready. And you've even been able to find like other areas of the body, right, that have been injured or that are like really lacking. Because of, obviously they hurt their ACL or, maybe they hurt their, their ankle, but maybe you're going to see weakness or in other areas, you're going to see kind of downstream effects, and you're able to show that as well, right?
Yeah, correct. And that's why the full body approach and for us, specifically the Proteus full body approach, it doesn't matter if it's right shoulder, left shoulder. So if there's deficits, we're able to, get it all going at the same time. And for the patient, what we talk to the patient or the athlete or the, trainee, so to speak, is essentially, listen, here's where you're at. Here's where we want you to be. Here's where you need to be to make sure that your risk level. So it's the highest possibility with the lowest risk factor for re-injury. And that, in my opinion, is where we should be going in physical therapy, data analytics, and reduction. Talk all day about reduction of healthcare costs and, the baloney that is extending PT and not getting anywhere, that gives our profession a really rough name. Oh, I went to PT. We hear it all the time. I already did PT. It's not going to help. Okay, well, let's have that conversation. Let me show you how we're going to do it. And I swear it's like almost like you don't want to be like, I know, but like, you're so different. Nobody ever told me this before. It's like, well, it's the science that you're able to harness with that. So, yeah. Right.
Yeah. I love it. And I think that's something too, I'm sure, as you've gotten more and more experience too, like that shows through your work as well. Right. I definitely know I started out as a PT. I probably saw people I probably had to get a couple more extra visits that I didn't need just because I wasn't as skilled. Right. And I didn't have the technology or any of that stuff available. I had a kind of almost my entire career, more of a low tech setup. So I'm jealous of the PTs that are at your facility with Proteus and all the other cool toys you got. Actually, let's talk about it real quick. What are some other pieces of equipment you have, other types of technology that you have in the clinic?
So prefacing that, let's keep in mind that super small practice, right? Yeah. So super small practice, and we all know reimbursement is not great. So what frustrates me more than anything is when companies will say it's too expensive to invest in technology. We have an AlterG treadmill, which amazing for us. We have been trying to cover lower extremity, core, and upper extremity with data analytics. So the AlterG treadmill we utilize, and there's a gait program with that, which is amazing. So able to get people back running, put them on Proteus for core work. It's just very, very cool. But it's really about the science behind all of this and how you apply it. So we use Dorsivy technology as well for wireless mini sensors for biomechanics in the lower extremities, right. And then we use the quick board for agility testing. So quick feet agility testing. So we literally have the lineup of our testing day rolls, Dorsivy, quick board, Proteus, boom, boom, boom. And we've developed a score sheet in-house, and that we roll through everything. So it's been, it's definitely the next evolution, as I see it, as where we should be going. And it's what patients and athletes deserve, where you would only get this kind of stuff, with the Major League Baseball or, the NHL. It takes PTs like you and I'm working on it myself to try and get out there and really put the work in to make it applicable and somewhat effortless, I guess.
Yeah. And some of it's like a trickle down thing, right? It starts with like a lot of those, it's even like what we initially started with, working with a lot of professional teams and athletes, but then
and restricted blood flow. I forgot about that. Huge.
Oh yeah. Awesome.
With Proteus. Totally forgot about that.
Oh yeah. No. Ooh, yeah. Let's go back to that. Yeah. I'll just finish this point quick, but just talking about the trickle down of starting with like professional sports and places like that have the budget and appetite to kind of try these new pieces of technology. And then obviously you learn from that and you bring it down to the consumer level. Right. And you refine it. And like, I can honestly say our product's better now than it was when we first, had it at the Dodgers or had it with the Anaheim Ducks and stuff like that. I mean, honestly, it's a better product now, just because of the evolution of it.
No, totally.
But yeah, talk a little bit about blood flow restriction. That's something that I've definitely seen some other people use, but not as much as you have with Proteus. Talk about that.
Oh, I could talk all day about blood flow and Proteus. So, one of the more exciting things for me is when you can combine pieces of technology to maximize, where it's like the synergies where you just are like, oh my God, didn't even know this was possible type thing. So, restricted blood flow we've been using for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, 5 years, something like that. Upper extremity, I think it's most prevalently known as a lower extremity science tool, post-op ACL, post-op knee surgeries. But restricted blood flow is definitely, the efficacy for upper extremity use is there in the literature. I feel it's underutilized in the clinic settings, maybe comfort level or experience level. But for those baseball athletes, we use it for just endurance training, post-op recovery, flushing, essentially, if they're on an off training day, just for activation. And then by pairing it with things like your arm care protocol that's very easily applied, scapular stability, shoulder stability, that programming, you're getting the fatigue factors, but you're also getting all those points where you're getting firing points, muscle activation points, where they're being able to be pushed to fatigue in ways that dumbbells and machines just won't happen.
And you got the factor, I've tried it before, blood flow restriction with Proteus, and something that's hard to kind of describe unless you felt it, because you're hitting both sides of the arm, or both, you're getting the agonist and antagonist at the same time, basically, right? If I push it, I didn't have to pull it. You're going to get a lot more blood flow restriction because you're getting a lot more muscle pump, so to speak, right? You're getting, because if let's say you put it up here, high on the, on the arm, and you're doing, let's just say something easy like bicep, tricep work. You're not just doing bicep, and you're hitting both. So the amount of stuff that's working and getting trapped kind of below that, the cuff there is actually going to be a lot more in a shorter period of time. So again, talking about efficiencies, talking about, working both areas at the same time, you're going to get all those benefits with something like, with Proteus, as compared to, let's say you were to do a nutritional setting, throw the cuff on, you do some stuff for the bicep, then you'd have to go over to the tricep thing, bicep, then it would take more time to hit the same amount of stuff. And then obviously you have the 3D resistance part where you're able to get scapula, all those types of things. That's super cool that you're using it with that. I don't see a ton of people doing that, but I've tried it a couple of times, and it's a killer. I just don't have access to a cuff system. So
no, it's nuts. The the protocol's 75 reps, essentially, like the 30 and then three sets of 15. So you think banging out 75 reps on both sides, bi tris, or even internal external rotation. So that's the beauty, right? So internal external rotation, you get that fire up just in that straight plane movement, where you don't have to load in a sideline position, or like half load with plates and cuff weights to figure out where you're at. You just hit the button on that thing, and if it's too easy, too hard.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's like a no-brainer. Yeah,
that's a great point. Being able to train it in a standing position, which is how the athlete's going to move anyway.
Yes. Yeah. It's all about that functional training position. Yeah.
So that's awesome. So something I know that you've done before with your business is you've also had clients that stay after therapy. Isn't that right? That they come in and do training as well. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that and maybe specifically what types of programs you're doing that are, after they kind of graduate from physical therapy?
Sure. So, again, trying to combat the declining reimbursement, which is why I was hell bent on a hybrid practice. So when people complete their, traditional stay with physical therapy, whatever that may be, knee, shoulder, hip, Proteus is usually introduced to, 90% of the population throughout. And because, again, we're a small office, it is literally the centerpiece in our office. So, which is cool for us because it's an easy conversation by far. But the culture that we've created around some of the pieces and the work that we do, people frequently don't want to wrap up PT. They're like, oh, I want to keep coming back. So, right. I mean, that's what you want to hear, really, as a business. Sure. That's what you want to hear. Of course. You want to keep coming back? Sure. Let's see.
We can figure something out.
Yeah, let's figure it out. And that's literally how it evolved. We had a couple baseball kid and a lady that was trying to get back into working out and had multiple injuries. So they're like, can I just keep coming for Proteus? And I was like, they tease me in the office because I'm like, oh yeah, no problem. Sure. Let's do it. And afterwards in the meeting, they're like, what are we doing with that? Like, how is that going to work? I'm like, oh, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. So we have a cash pay program that you pay for time on the Proteus, essentially. So you schedule like anybody else and you pay, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, whatever it is. You pay cash, you can buy packages, and they come in, they do their thing because they're already familiar with it on the business side. We don't really need to do a ton as far as monitoring and education. Right. We will, before and after, we will have the conversation. How were you after last time? Same PT stuff. How were you after last time? Do you want to up anything? So they still kind of defer if they choose to us assisting with planning their programming or changing what their custom program is. But the young guys, no, they just come in here. Ronnie K comes in. He's just like all over it. He's like tracking his stats. He knows what's going on.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So Ronnie K's a kid that's been with us since we got Proteus, and that was umpteen years ago, I guess, at this point, and he has not left since. So he is with us all the time. Wow. Through season, he does arm care. Postseason, he does training. He still does all of his work with his pitching coach, et cetera, but he can't not have his Proteus. So
that's cool. And didn't you have a group of women that were all doing it at the same time and started to ask like do you Proteus?
Proteus? Oh my gosh, yes. I totally forgot about that. Yeah. Do you Proteus?
I don't know if we ended up making those t-shirts, but we're like, oh, that's cool. We should make t-shirts for that. Do you Proteus? Because weren't they all challenging each other to see if they had like who got their, because Proteus gives you that green little ding when you hit a PR. They wanted to be like, hey, did you get green today?
Did you get green? And then you get a high five if you get the boom of the new personal record, or you get the we're pretty informal at times. So I'm like, oh, you were an embarrassment and a disappointment today. You didn't get any PRs. So
personal records.
Yep. Gotcha. No. So very cool. Thank you. I forgot.
And then there was someone else that was using it who was using kind of looking at her. I think it was her not maybe blood glucose or looking at
sugar levels. Yeah.
Because she was coming in and she was diabetic and saw a big change with training, using it a lot, which I got to say makes a lot of sense from a standpoint of, from a metabolic standpoint, because it's activating so many parts of the body and so many muscles at once. It's got to be a great metabolic conditioning tool for that type of population,
So no, for sure. And what we've noticed too is what we thought was going to happen when the Proteus arrived. We knew, the kids, college athletes or whatever, the ones that want to be big and bad and tough and I have the best power output, they'd have at it. But really where we found and we had talked previously over the years about the other demographic, which is people that are just trying to get in shape, but they don't want to necessarily go back to the gym, or they're fearful. And, especially now coming out, whatever we're doing right now, coming out of the pandemic and trying to get back to some kind of normalcy. It's safe. You're not racking stuff. Nobody's going to, question the movements. There's the educational videos. So definitely a whole other demographic rolling into use of the Proteus, which we didn't anticipate. So, which is great. It's really
that's
great.
really cool. That's really cool. And I think that you really do a nice job illustrating the diversity of use with both the population that you work with, but also just from a business standpoint, everywhere from obviously using it the traditional therapy model where you're using it to test and retest, but also, how you're using it with, to justify continued care. Like all that stuff is stuff we talk about a lot, when we talk to customers, but it's really cool to see someone that's done it for a long time and had success with it.
Thank you. I'm like a kid in a candy shop. Are you kidding? Yeah. Love it.
Well, I think it's a good time to jump into our kind of what we call the Proteus power questions. We got to relate it back to Proteus, right? Can't be the lightning round. It's got to be the power questions. So got a few of these for you. Just shoot from the hip. Just want to see what your answers are. And then we'll wrap up after that. So you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's go. So first one, what is the biggest gimmick you've seen in physical therapy in the last few years or training?
Oh, sweet Lord. Shake weight comes up often, which
that's
is
a great answer.
I try to sidestep that bad boy all the time, but yeah, no,
that's a great answer. Shake weight. Shake weight made an appearance on the podcast. I love it.
Oh my gosh, terrible.
Okay, so now we're going to kind of go to the antithesis of that question is what piece of equipment do you not have that you wish you had?
Oh, force plate.
Force plate. You know what? I think I've done almost 10 of these now. And I think that's come up probably 3 or 4 times.
Yeah. For sure.
I think it's something too, when you look at what Proteus does as far as like improving ground reaction force, something that you'll see all the time. We've even done some studies to look at that. It's a really natural pairing. So
I know. We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. Okay. So, all right. Now this one is, we'll see where you go with this. Some people don't like this question. Some people do. What are your top 5 favorite go-to exercises? Proteus or not? You can start with Proteus if you want, or you can just go regular stuff in the clinic, but would love your top 5 favorite exercises.
Sure. That's not too bad of a hard one.
Okay.
Upper extremity, Proteus would be cross body diagonal patterns for sure because of the scap activation. Lateral bounding, so 2 of the 5 lateral bounding on lower extremities for Proteus. Single leg get-ups for me is huge. Sitting in a chair, single leg, as opposed to a single leg squat. For various reasons, I think there's a lot of value in being able to objectively view valgus collapse, and for them to be able to progress through what a single leg get up should look like, which is kind of cool. Clamshells, hands down, various all over the place, and planks. And so those are the guys, like all of those, I think you could pick any diagnosis anywhere in the clinic and you will find one of those 5 things for sure as a staple of how we do it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Great answer. So that wasn't hard for you at all. Some people really struggle with that one. So,
no.
So, all right, here's one a little different. Who is your favorite athlete of all time and why?
Ooh. Gosh, it's changed. It's actually changed a little bit over the years. Favorite athlete of all time. Well, since watching the Last Dance, Michael Jordan's like the easy. Yeah, MJ's like the easy one in the sense of the hard work and the work ethic. But if I'm gonna, I don't know, it's a tough one. Favorite athlete of all time. Hey,
you got one in there. If you have any, you got a runner up.
No, I think I'd stick with MJ. I mean, it's probably like a standard, easy peasy one, but
nothing wrong. He's the GOAT.
He is the GOAT. What I will tell you though, for me being a female in sports, the favorite all-time moment was hands down 1999 Women's World Cup with
Love it.
Brandy Chastain, ripping her shirt off after the penalty shot.
I remember watching that.
I was just out of PT school working as a bartender, like ignoring my tables because like waiting for them to kick the goal. And it was just, as a former athlete, female athlete, that for me, that was like the pinnacle. Like, oh my God, like in my entire lifetime, I don't think I ever thought I would watch women's sports on TV. So
I got goosebumps thinking about it.
Actually. Yeah, me too, actually.
I remember it. And I just remember too, that was the moment when I think everyone realized, oh wow, like they're also, I mean, they are way better than the men's team. Let's just call it like it is.
I have a very unhealthy collector obsession with the women's 99 national team for sure. Like jerseys at home, autograph. My husband's like, really? Like, what are you going to do with an autographed soccer ball? Don't care.
Look at it, appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes. Hands down. Yep.
All right. Well, hey, how about this one? What advice would you give to young Andrea Davis, like just starting in her career? Let's say that point in time. What advice would you give?
I would say trust the process and trust yourself. Definitely was a young, two sides of the coin. And I've been exploring that a lot lately, just in the growth of my practice. But trust yourself, have more confidence. I came up in a very male-dominated sports clinical world, and was not always taken seriously, despite me being very serious about all of the work. So I think I would just, it's the confidence part. So,
I know it's interesting because our profession is mostly female. But when you get into sports, it definitely can trend a little bit more male. So, but it's funny. All of my mentors, the mentors I work with the most in my career, they're all female, and the ones I still look up to the most are all female. So
that's cool.
I think I had like a nice split, maybe a little different type of experience than some of the other people I've met. But yeah, that's great. So, okay, last one?
Yeah.
Are you a podcast person? What are your favorite podcasts? What other podcasts besides the Proteus Performance?
I was going to say, I mean, the Proteus Performance podcast is top of the list.
What are any other ones you recommend or you like listening to?
I really enjoy, and I'm a bit of a nerd, so I really do enjoy. I audio book a lot, but I enjoy Owen's Recovery Science, which is restricted blood flow. And it's how they it's just how they roll out the research. It's a lot of dry research when you talk about physiology and the chemical compounds that are created with restricted blood flow. But I think they do a really great job of keeping it loose. It's almost like sitting, and I know those guys fairly well over the years, but it's like talking to a bunch of frat guys that are presenting as like
really?
busting each other's chops, but the intelligence level is ridiculously high.
That's cool.
So it's a pretty cool combination. So
I'll and they give that a shot.
They break down the research pretty well too. So that's definitely my number one in this moment.
Awesome.
So
that's awesome. I love it when you can bring, science with entertainment. Hopefully something we're going to be doing here. So
no, you do it very well, very well. So, and then the only other one is a plug for mine that we just started like 2 months ago. Ooh. So Antoinette and I started a podcast a couple months ago. Antoinette Shields is my colleague. We refer to it as the A team because that's kind of how we're referred to in the office, because of our first names, not because of anybody else being less than the A team. But so that's a good one too.
That's awesome. Yeah, I will. Hey, I did.
Oh,
not
you're
know
coming
that,
on.
I did not know that you guys had started that. I will be glad to come on. By the way, but yeah, I will definitely check that out and listen to it. And all of our listeners, y'all need to listen to it too. So, okay. So that's a good segue then to, the last thing. I always want to make sure people know how they can find you. So obviously we got the A Team podcast. So other than that, how do people find out about what you're up to?
So I have, our practice has an Instagram. So at Davis PTSR, physical therapy, sports rehab. I also have my own professional Instagram, which, a little bit of personal, a little bit of business, really, at Dr._Andrea_ @Davis PTSR. And then my email is Andrea @Davis PTSR, and our website is www.davisptsr. So,
All right.
there
Great.
we go.
Well, we all know how to find you. And thank you again so much for coming on. I always enjoy our conversations. Just glad we could get it on the record.
Thanks, Will. Yeah, no, you've been great. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Well, we will talk to you soon. Have a good day.
All right, you too. Thank you.
All right.